Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Some of California's zero-emission future is on display here in San Diego. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A new year brings us closer to a zero-emission future in California. Jacob Ayer visited the convention center today, where some of the technology that will take us there is on display.
San Diego's annual car show looked much like it had before the pandemic, packed with thousands of people, new car releases, and lots of vibrant colors. But the one noticeable difference was the unavoidable presence of hybrid and electric vehicles. That's a welcome change for auto show attendee and electric car owner Steve Byer.
For charging, for us, we have solar in our house, and so it's just kind of a natural. We can, every night we just plug the thing in, we wake up in the morning, we've got a full tank, essentially.
Guillermo Barajon has been looking for a new, fully electric car alongside his wife. He says the volatile and high price of gas over the past few years is factoring into their decision to make the switch.
Well, we know that the EVs is the way to go with the gas prices as they are. We're looking to just upgrade so that we can have a vehicle that's going to last us for a few years.
But others, like Joe Quiros, plan to stick with the traditional gas vehicle.
I didn't realize it was an all-electric, so, it's kind of probably something I'd stay away from.
He didn't seem bothered by gas prices or the state's upcoming policy that all new cars, pickup trucks, and SUVs in California will have to be electric or hydrogen by 2035.
It sounds good, but then when you start to kind of do some research into it, it's like it almost doesn't sound as cost-effective as they make it out to be. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a new technology that I'm more old school, I think.
Some people were more in the middle, looking for a plug-in hybrid, like John Sod. He says that's the best option for his family at the moment, while electric vehicle charging infrastructure continues to be built out across the country.
The 40-mile range is his maximum range, where it can go all electric and bring it home, charge it up that night. But when we do take a long trip, there's no have to drive and wait at a charging station for that driving station angst, because it's got a regular gasoline engine in it and will take you the rest of the distance.
Byer says he won't go back to gas-powered vehicles due to the ease of charging at home and lower costs of maintenance with electric cars. But he does caution that some electric vehicles won't drive the full amount of miles they claim they will run on a full charge. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And so let's take a look at the current gas price situation. After a period of decline, prices are slowly rising again. AAA says the current average for San Diego County is $4.53 per gallon. That's up nearly 10 cents from a week ago. The national average is $3.21. And more electric cars means more demand on our electricity grid. Later in the show, we'll go into the KPBS archives for some context. We'll show you our story from KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson, who looks at the demand now and how the system will need to grow in the years ahead. San Diegans will see an increase in their paycheck in 2023. KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us about the city of San Diego's newest minimum wage law.
Since July 2016, the minimum wage in the city of San Diego has increased $5.80.
The aspiration with these minimum wage laws is to provide a living wage for people, when we all know how expensive housing and other things are in the city of San Diego.
As of January 1st, 2023, employees who work in the city will receive $16.30 an hour. But constitutional law expert Dan Eaton says it's still not a living wage in San Diego.
It's pretty clear that when you do the math, it's going to fall short of that. But it's still moving it closer to that ideal.
This wage increase is higher than the state's minimum wage increase to $15.50 an hour. Alan Jin is an economics professor at the University of San Diego and says the newest wage increase takes into account a few factors like inflation and the consumer price index.
When prices rise, the minimum wage is going to rise to help compensate workers then for the increased living costs. And that's what's happening then in 2023. Inflation was particularly high here in San Diego, so the minimum wage is going to go up about 8%.
Due to the local ordinance, minimum wage will continue to adjust in the city of San Diego.
The legislation is structured. The minimum wage will increase every year by the amount of inflation. So this can go on indefinitely.
Experts have mixed feelings about increasing the minimum wage. Some say the higher cost of labor may lead to fewer workers getting jobs, but Jin is on the side that thinks this is positive for the economy.
It just gives more money then to workers, and then the workers then can take that money and go out and spend it, and that'll give a boost to businesses who have to pay this higher minimum wage.
Melissa May, KPBS News.
And the minimum wage is just one of several prominent new laws for California in 2023, from jaywalking to oil drilling and a whole lot more. We have a list for you at kpbs.org. It's a damp, windy, and cold start to 2023, not just in San Diego, but across California. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado shows us that in the mountains, the storm also brought a lot of snow. But will this be enough to put a dent in the drought?
Snow deep enough to swallow your entire boot, and it keeps falling and falling. This is on New Year's Eve in the Sierra Nevadas, in Soda Springs to be exact, near the Donner Pass, where you'll find some of the harshest winter conditions. This video was shot by Andrew Schwartz, lead scientist of the UC Berkeley Central Sierra Snow Lab. He says while it's not unusual to see snowstorms this size,
the thing that wasn't so common is that we saw 7.5 inches of snow fall in 1 hour. And that's one of the highest snowfall rates, as far as we can tell, that's ever been recorded in the United States. And there's a lot of people, us included, that are looking into that right now.
Schwartz says the weather system that caused that much snow to fall that fast is known as an atmospheric river. It caused massive flooding throughout Northern California. People were quickly trapped in their cars on freeways, and streets looked like rivers.
The rain caused a lot of landslides. When the storm was first making its landfall up here, a lot of the roads had debris on them from rock slides that were occurring and things like that. The snow has caused some issues. There's some major power outages up here right now. We've been without power for 2 days.
It was nowhere near as bad in Southern California, but some areas of San Diego County got doused with close to 3 inches over the weekend. And Alex Tardy, a meteorologist with NOAA, says more rain is on the way.
Remember how warm it was on Christmas Day? Well, that's a distant memory. So now we've seen 2 big storms in Southern California since Christmas Day. And we're going to see another one on Thursday. And we potentially will remain on and off with wet weather into the middle of January.
Tardy says Thursday's storm will pack a punch.
Thursday's an atmospheric river, just like we saw New Year's Eve. That's why there's going to be a lot of rain on Thursday. Even in San Diego, over 1 inch of rain.
All this rain and snow is welcome during what has become a historic drought in California and throughout the West. But Schwartz says we're still a long way from getting out of it.
There's no single storm that's going to get us out of this drought. If there was, it would cause catastrophic and untold damage, because effectively at this point, many regions around California and the West Coast need to see an extra year of precipitation.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
And San Diego had some issues with wind and flooding in some of our regular trouble spots. But as Kitty just mentioned, the brunt of the storm passed to our north. Camila Bernal shows us some of the serious problems it caused this weekend in the Bay Area.
Record-breaking rain across California, leaving at least 2 dead and many stranded.
The water kept getting deeper and deeper.
In Sacramento County, an estimated 40 people rescued from their cars, according to a local fire official. Here's a view from above.
It's amazing how strong it is, how strong the flowing water is.
Others were told to evacuate or shelter in place.
I've been here about 6 years, and that's worse than it's ever been.
The storm system causing significant flooding in urban areas and leaving creeks and rivers in Northern California overflowing.
When you see the water moving this quick and rising like this, it's a little unsettling.
On Saturday, 4.75 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period in Oakland, the wettest day on record. Roads were so impacted that the National Weather Service said closures were too many to count.
When I opened one of my gates, there was so much water, it was gushing and it knocked me over.
Thousands were also left without power Saturday and Sunday. And while crews worked to restore power, the overall cleanup could take days.
This is crazy. I've never seen it so deep here.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Ukraine's capital endures 3 straight days of Russian attacks to start the new year. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Tomorrow morning, a brand new Congress will be sworn in at the nation's capital. The current Congress might be remembered for its investigation into former President Donald Trump. Part of that includes a years-long effort to understand his tax history. Now that those returns are public, Kristen Holmes has details on what we're learning.
Little or no income tax, foreign bank accounts, and eyebrow-raising details about loans to his adult children. Just some of the findings after the Democratic-led House Ways and Means Committee released 6 years' worth of former President Trump's federal tax returns. The returns spanning from the year Trump announced his first run for president, 2015, through his last year in office, 2020.
The research that was done as it relates to the mandatory audit program was non-existent. The tax forms were really never audited.
Previous reporting from the Joint Committee on Taxation revealed shockingly low tax amounts paid by the former president, including paying only $750 in 2017, and in 2018 and 19, paying a combined $1.1 million, and paying no income tax in 2020, his final year in office. Trump offsetting his income by claiming millions of dollars in losses, raising questions about the former president's business failures. And while Trump paid less than $1,000 in U.S. income tax in 2017, the former president's tax bill totaled nearly $1 million in foreign taxes the same year, indicating notable business dealings in more than a dozen countries, including Azerbaijan, Turkey, China, Israel, and Brazil. Shedding light on where Trump's business interests were while he was in the White House. The returns also showed Trump maintained foreign bank accounts while serving in the White House, including in China. Some of Trump's business spending raising eyebrows among experts, including a 2017 claim that one of his businesses, DJT Aerospace, made exactly the same amount spent, the zero net ensuring there was nothing to tax, something one tax expert referred to as a, quote, statistical impossibility.
My personal tax returns, which show only that I've had tremendous success.
Trump blasting the release as an outrageous abuse of power and calling for Republicans taking control of the House to immediately investigate Biden and his family's finances.
It's so sad for our country. It's nothing but another deranged political witch hunt, which has been going on from the day I came down the escalator in Trump Tower.
And that was Kristen Holmes reporting. This weekend brought another reminder to those of us in California that an earthquake can strike at any time. Security cameras show us some of the shaking in the town of Rio Del on Sunday. That's a small town along the 101 freeway in far northern California near Eureka. The U.S. Geological Survey says it was a magnitude 5.4. A stronger earthquake hit the same region just a couple of weeks ago.
Well, we're gearing up for a very active weather week here. A lot to talk about here in your headlines. We have a breezy start to the week. Those rain chances start to increase again here late Monday into Tuesday with some even higher elevation snow. But it is going to be a rainy and even snowy week here, especially through the middle of the week. That's when we are going to see another storm push through. But let's talk about the first one, Monday into Monday night. That's when this area of low pressure with this cold front is going to push through. Amping up the energy here with some rain showers along the coast from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego. We also have this high surf advisory with this system that's going to be in effect here through Monday evening. And as we make our way more inland, those winds again are going to start to pick up. There is this wind advisory here from Monday afternoon through early Tuesday. Tonight, we're dropping down to lows in the mid-50s here with periods of rain. It is going to be the same story here heading into your Tuesday too. So tracking this out in Futurecast though, again, we do have intermittent showers here passing through Southern California, through LA, through San Diego as we make our way closer to the mountains, again mixing in with some snow too as well. We're not really going to start to dry out here until later on Tuesday during the afternoon, but again, we do have another round on the way, so don't put the umbrella away just yet. San Diego County forecast here for tomorrow, especially on the coast. We are expecting, again, rain showers here throughout the day. Cooler, of course, as we make our way more inland. Areas like Mount Laguna just hitting highs in the low 40s. We have another round with the atmospheric river, though, late Wednesday into Thursday. That's going to bring significant subtropical moisture here to the coast of California. It is going to be a soaker here along the coast here through the middle of the week. Warming up Wednesday, cooling down Thursday, staying cooler through the weekend with some sun and clouds. Similar story here inland, and as we make our way to the mountains, it is going to be, again, a passing shower to Tuesday through Wednesday, drying out here for the weekend. The desert, again, on and off again showers. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Beginning in the 1940s, the Ken Cinema brought foreign and independent films to San Diego, but the single-screen landmark has been vacant for the past 2 years. Now, KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says the building has been sold.
The Ken Cinema's fate has been in limbo since Landmark Theaters vacated the building in March of 2020, just as the pandemic hit. Then, just before Christmas, I received news that was certainly a lump of coal in my stocking. The Ken, which first opened in 1946, had been sold and would no longer be a theater. Here's what Randy Collender Hawk, a member of the family that sold the Ken, said today in a Facebook message. This is a decision amongst the family. The new owner is working to maintain the visual appeal to blend in with the integrity and character of the neighborhood. We will all miss the Ken and what my grandfather created out of love for film. Her grandfather was Robert Birkin. He had a business card boasting that the Ken was San Diego's only exclusive foreign and art cinema. He was ahead of his time and gifted San Diego with a place to watch films as a community. Ethan Montillo is executive director of the Media Arts Center. He toured the cinema last August in order to make a bid on the building.
Again, I was surprised because I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually, the seats are still there. You know, the screen is still there. I actually got excited and I was like, oh, we could turn this around pretty quickly.
But the cost was too high, and a single-screen movie theater like the Ken just did not seem viable, even with pandemic restrictions lifting. Fontillo recalled what the Ken meant to him when he came to San Diego 30 years ago.
It was that space where you could, get their calendar and check out all the independent films and foreign films. Losing that opportunity to see great independent cinema in a public space, a community space, where you could watch the movie and then afterwards you talk about the movie. Again, very sad day for San Diego to lose such a iconic cinema.
Stephen Russell was Ken Cinema house manager in the 1980s.
You could just on a whim say, let's just go to the Ken. Let's see what's playing. You wouldn't know what it was, but you could trust the curatorial voice, right, of the people who are programming it. And you could have wonderful surprises. And so the thing about the Ken is there's something mysterious that you just knew that something special could be happening there. And so that's lost.
Back in the 80s, before the internet and social media, the Ken could be a place to bring communities together just by showing a film.
Maybe it was an Ethiopian film. Maybe it was a Jewish community film, maybe it was the peace community, maybe it was French films. And when we would play a film like that, we would reach out to people, and for that night, for one night in that place, that was their village. But the power of being in a room with 100, 200, 300 people who were of a mind, a heart community, that's lost. That's what's heartbreaking when we lose that.
The loss of such a cinematic treasure during the streaming age is also a sad sign of changing times. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Comic books have inspired a multi-billion-dollar cinematic universe and dozens of hit video games. And another one is one that's expected to be one of the most anticipated games of the year. Rick Damigella tells us why 2023 is expected to be a breakthrough year for the industry.
Will one of you finally give me what I desire?
A new adventure starring more than one friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is among the most anticipated new video games slated to release in the new year.
2023 has the potential to be, if not the best year for video games ever, in the top 3 or 5. It is going to be such a phenomenal year based on what we know so far. And there's going to be a lot of things coming that we haven't even heard about. But out of the stuff that I know that is coming up next year, the thing that I'm most excited for is Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, which is going to bring Miles Morales and Peter Parker back together again.
We've come to the beginning of humanity's final journey.
I'm also super excited to see how Bethesda delivers Starfield. This is a game that is coming from an acclaimed studio that's won lots and lots of accolades for its work in the past. Every Nintendo Switch fan in the world is very excited about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which happens to be my favorite video game of all time.
After all we've done, the Empire's only grown stronger.
And another one that I cannot wait for is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which was a very cool surprise when it came out a couple of years ago. A lot of acrobatics and Jedi powers, and of course, those sweet, sweet lightsaber duels. I cannot wait for Jedi Survivor.
Leveling up in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
And a lot of the action you see in the video games are the work of talented stunt people who specialize in this kind of work. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando recently caught up with one local stuntman who showed us his role in major games like the God of War franchise. That story can be streamed anytime on the KPBS YouTube page. Now, at the top of the show, we checked out the latest and greatest at the San Diego International Auto Show. California's EV future will bring more demand for electricity in a state where we already have issues meeting our current needs. In September, KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson brought us this story on how the grid will need to grow in the years ahead.
The gentle hum of electric vehicles could soon overtake the rumble of internal combustion engines in California. Clean air regulators say all new cars sold in the state will be electric or zero emissions by 2035. But California's relationship with the power grid is fraught with uncertainty, a fact highlighted by a late summer heat wave.
Between now and next Wednesday, we're going to be experiencing a prolonged heat moment.
Governor Gavin Newsom's calls for conservation were answered, and the threat of rolling blackouts was averted. But Newsom was roasted on social media after power grid officials asked residents not to charge their EVs during the evening. That came just a week after the state announced the 2035 ban on the sale of new cars with internal combustion engines. Still, California remains committed to shrinking its carbon footprint as a way to avoid more intense wildfires and drought, hallmarks of climate change.
That we need to eliminate emissions from the California economy.
David Victor is an energy policy researcher at UC San Diego.
Biggest source of emissions right now in California, 41% of emissions come from transportation. So you got to tackle that. And the leading solution, not the only solution, the leading solution is electrifying, especially electrifying cars.
Victor says no one wants the electric grid to become less reliable, and he says there's time for the state to absorb the coming demand. He says EVs are arriving in the midst of an energy transition. Solar and wind are rising in prominence, but that also calls for more energy storage capacity. And the grid will have to be built up to account for the extra draw from EVs.
Pretty much every study shows there's going to be a significant increase in the demand for electricity in California as a result of this. I think many of the studies suggest that light-duty vehicles alone, so cars, that they are going to be responsible for maybe a 1/4 increase in the demand for electricity between now and 2045.
And while millions of new EVs will be feeding off the electric grid in coming years, the change isn't immediate. San Diego Gas and Electric representatives say they can handle the demand for more power as more EVs hit the road.
The short answer to that is yes.
Jenny Reynolds is San Diego Gas and Electric's Director of Clean Transportation.
The long answer is much more complicated. And so when you start getting into the specifics of when that load's going to hit, how it's going to hit, what new technology and what type of battery storage we have to help, that's a much more complex answer.
Reynolds says the utility can build the required power lines and transformers. That's what utilities do. But the company also needs to build understanding among its EV customers. Right now, energy usage peaks between 4 and 9 p.m. The utility wants EV charging to happen during the day or overnight.
If we can get a lot of that charging in those times, then the build out isn't going to be as much. So we have capacity that's there. It's about how do we incentivize customers to use that capacity. Then it's also the new technology like vehicle to grid and how we as consumers are going to be able to own our energy transition.
Vehicle to grid is an emerging technology being tested in the Cajon Valley School District. Electric buses can feed power in their batteries back to the grid for a premium price when electricity is in short supply. EVs, in essence, could become a huge reservoir of stored energy. But UC San Diego's Jan Kleisel says that tech isn't quite ready yet.
So the devil really is in the details of the inverter technology not becoming too expensive to then make it not worth the customer's while. And the battery manufacturer, meaning in this case the vehicle manufacturer, agreeing that this is something that they will cover under warranty.
Kleisel says developing ways to manage the power demand from millions of household devices and EVs will keep the grid reliable.
Computing systems can help us to manage things better in time, like scheduling. But still, you don't make the load go away. You just shift it.
Shifting the load, shifting people's habits, and shifting the power supply to renewables while adding capacity to the grid are keys to making sure the flood of EVs don't swamp a power grid that's already feeling its limitations. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.